Hello, I'm John Paul and I'm here at Rimmer Brothers today to work on this Range Rover L322. Now it's flagged up a fault on the dashboard, which we're going to show you in a moment, and it's indicating the fault is the neutral sensing switch on the side of the gearbox. So today we're going to change that switch. You can request this catalogue from Rimmer Brothers on the L322, so you can get on here, you can look at all the parts you need, get all the part numbers before you go on the website, and then you can order them properly. Right, to remove this switch, we're firstly going to remove the gear change cable. So you need a 13mm spanner, take off the actuator rod, and a 10mm spanner to take off the rear bracket, and then we can move the cable out of the way. Then there's a cover, a metal cover held on with some 10mm spanner size bolts. We'll remove that cover, and then we'll be able to see the switch. I've taken the two bolts out from the rear bracket on the gear linkage change cable, and now we'll just take the nut off to the front. This is just on a flat, so you can't get it wrong when it's going back on. So now the cable's out of the way. If you can see I don't know if you can see that properly. If you can see the shape of the hole in the bracket there, you can see it can only go on one way. So when it goes back together, it's nice and simple. So let's get that out of the way. And then I'm just going to take this bracket off now. Not bracket, the plate that covers the switch. So 10mm again. Get both of these undone, and we'll be able to see the switch. We've got two little M6 bolts out of the way, and that's the cover that covers the switch. Now that's out of the way, we can take off the two 10mm bolts, or M6 bolts, 10mm spanner head bolts, and then we'll have to trace the wire back to the top of the gearbox, so we'll have to find out where that goes in a second. Okay, so we've taken those two M6 bolts out, and we've just taken off the switch now. So we'll now trace the wires back up, unplug it, then that's ready to fit the new one. Just going to remove this vent box now so we can get to the plug. So if you just remove the weather strip, there's two M8 nuts, one each side. Let's take those off and just pull it forward. Battery cable's on one side, a little bit difficult to get out. Remove the whole box. Then we can get down to the back of the engine. You'll see where the wire comes over the bell housing. There's two little clips on the bell housing. Unclip those off there, and then you can unplug the plug, and then we can take the switch off. Now we've got the switch off, you'll be able to see this is the wiring connector. Obviously it plugs in and turns, so to undo it you have to unturn it and pull it out. This is the bracket that bolts on the back of the engine on the bell housing there, so you have to undo that to get that bit off. And these are the little spring clips that spring onto the lugs of the gearbox, and you make sure that that all tracks the wire nice and neatly. And this is the actual switch itself. You can see there's the actual switch is inside, and it fits on a flat, so it only goes in one way. I'm just going to replace the switch pretty much opposite to what we did when we took it to pieces. If you can see the shaft coming out of the gearbox, you can see the flat on it, and it does only go in on one way, but just make sure you don't force it. So you've got to put the switch on, feel it for the right flat, and push it all the way onto that shaft. And there's a little locating lug there, and it goes into the hole on the switch. So it all locates in exactly the right place, and then we can bolt the cover back on, which goes on top of the switch, and then we can bolt the cable back on, which is the actuator, and then we'll refeed the wire over the top of the gearbox. So I've reconnected the wire at the back of the bell housing, and I've bolted it back onto the back of the engine there. All that remains now is to put the pollen filter box back in, which just simply slides back in. A little bit awkward on the front of this ramp here. Just needs to go around that battery cable, back onto your two bolts, put your two M8 nuts back on, your weather strip back on, and then that's it, we're ready for a road test.